Hello and welcome back to another of the Lawful Remedies, a day earlier this week because it's Friday tomorrow. A Good Friday, apparently. I'm Richard Vobes, and with me is Karen Dodd, and tonight we have a host of clever clogs for you. It's like Celebrity Squares. Where's Bob Monkhouse when you want him?
Sitting next to me.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. And how are you, Karen?
Yeah, I'm very well, very well. Looking forward to this evening because we've got loads of them on today, which is great. We've got, as you say, like a blankety blank jobby or Celebrity Squares, all sitting there on your screen.
On my screen.
On your screen, waiting for the questions. So we do need questions, as we were just saying. If you can put question on, if you're putting it in the comments, so that we can go to that straight away. But we do have a couple already.
Here we go. Look, here is an example of some of them all on the screen there.
Bless them.
It is a bit like...
Yeah, it is. And then they all move around, don't they? Yeah.
If only I could do a Bob Monkhouse impression.
I'm sure you can. Of course you can.
I can't
Of course you can, Malcolm.
I can't remember what he sounds like.
Well, I know that's the thing. It was.
He was always happy, wasn't he? Happy
if it
and
had been
smiley.
Opportunity Knocks, that would have been easier.
Oh,
for
with Huey
me.
Green?
Yeah, yes.
Why can you do
And
Huey Green?
Well, not really. I don't mean that most sincerely, folks. Opportunity Knocks.
No, you can't do
no,
that. That's
no,
right,
thanks.
Richard.
Yeah,
So,
thanks for
back
that.
to...
So tell us, Karen, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, by the way. If you want to write a question, anything to do with the Lawful Remedy for your situation that you're in, remember, this is... I've got why I put that on your screen.
No, I don't know why you do either.
This is not legal advice, as in legal advice in the way that we might get sued. For anything. This is purely entertainment and bit of fun, but some of this stuff might be of use. Bit of wisdom, I think we could call it.
Wisdom, wise words from wise men, yeah.
Anyway, if you want to put a question in, put the word question in hieroglyphics so that we can't read it, and then your question that follows, and let's introduce our marvellous panel.
So tonight, Bob, we have
Thanks.
The People's Lawyer. Are you going to go to them as we do it or not?
Yes,
no,
yes.
Okay. Sorry, because okay.
As long as they say something.
So, hello, People's Lawyer, David Edelman.
Hi there.
There we are.
That's it. Goodbye.
Are you well?
Very well, thank you. Very invisible right now, but very well.
Excellent.
Very invisible.
Oh, no, there I am. That's it.
We can see you.
We can see.
It's going to be a fun night tonight, isn't it? It's chaos.
It is,
Yeah.
We have Dean of Buxton. Hello, Dean.
Hello, Dean.
Yeah, hi everybody.
There he
Oh,
is.
there he is, speaking. Well done.
In his car on the M1, hurtling south for the winter.
You're not driving.
No.
No. It doesn't look like he's hurtling.
It's the only place you can get a decent signal.
No, he's already hurtled.
Yeah.
Who else? We have allegedly Dave.
Hello, Dave.
Hello, everyone.
And where are you, Dave?
I am in Hong Kong at the moment, so it's about 1 o'clock in the morning here
Brilliant. But you're on UK time.
He's
he
on
says.
UK
Yeah,
time.
so-
on UK time.
Yeah.
We have Chris Coverdale.
Hello, Chris.
Speak, Chris, or forever hold your peace. I think he's holding his
The
peace.
muted Chris.
A muted Chris. Maybe we'll find him. I can't see him.
Sorry
Are you there,
about
Chris?
that.
Sorry.
Oh, yes, I'm fine. Thank you very much. I'm recovering after my problem with the bailiffs, so I'm nearly better now.
Oh, it's good to know.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
I hope that you've visited them and delivered a punch in the appropriate place in return.
Well, long term we may, but
Excellent.
I just need to focus
it's all
on the main.
peaceful.
A legal, peaceful,
Yeah,
honourable punch.
honourable. Yeah. A
honourable
few
punch.
words. Yeah. And then Sook. Have we said hello to Sook?
Not yet.
Hello, Sook.
Good evening, how are you?
All right, we're good.
Fantastic. Good to see you there in your baseball cap. And and your nice warm jacket.
And your nice warm jacket. And you've come on lastminute.com,
Yes,
haven't you?
good
Because I've only
morning.
just sent the link. And we also have, later this evening or whenever, we've got a good story. We've got a success story from Jill, who's kindly, we had to talk her into it to bring her on the show.
Did we?
But we did. So thank you, Jill, for coming on board at some stage. And you can tell us your success story from listening to advice from some of these wonderful clever clogs that we have on.
So
on
hello
board.
to you, Jill.
Hello, thanks for inviting me.
No, it's a pleasure
It's a
to have
pleasure.
you.
It is. And Jill's just come back from the Far East as well. You've just been away, so you're a bit jet lagged as well.
To Thailand, it was wonderful.
Thailand.
Oh,
So much more relaxed.
And sunnier
Yeah.
fantastic.
and drier.
Yes, drier than England, which
But, yeah.
we seem to have a lot of rain. Anyway, so there we are. That's our wonderful panel. And now all we need from you, our lovely viewer, is a series of mind-boggling, hard-taxing questions, which will absolutely get out the good lawful juices from these fine fellas and ladies. A lady.
Two ladies tonight.
Two ladies.
Well,
But
no, I'm not. I'm not the expert at all, am I? As people tell me on the comments, I'm not an expert. I'm just here trying to organise it through the Freedom Network. So I just sit here next to Richard. So,
we do have a few detractors who, isn't it amazing how people who really hate the show, they love to come on and hate the show.
All throughout the whole show, every week. It's like, a whole day, isn't it?
And
Days
just a special message for them. That's what the BBC was made for. So there we are. Anyway, have we got some questions from last?
Yes, we did. And I've lost it.
People had said, did you find the questions from last week?
Yes, I did. From last week. Okay, question from a viewer. Okay, so I was wondering whether you may have a cease and desist template letter to forward to the bank and or debt collectors against these so-called loans. This could be another series of interest to a lot of people.
So yes, a template. Well, we've spoken of templates, of course, but something that can help this gentleman in terms of a letter to the bank. I wonder what the bank is doing then, that he needs a cease and desist.
Yes, cease and desist.
Who would like to take on dealing with the lovely banks?
Any hands up?
Oh. Okay,
Dave.
Allegedly, Dave.
So I don't do the cease and desist route with banks. Usually I use a notice of conditional acceptance to highlight the fraud, essentially, and asking 3 or 4 questions about, like, where did the money come from, that sort of thing, and asking for evidence that the money came from them, they supplied the money, and things like that. Basically, such that they can't answer these questions. And this was actually one of the very first things I did when I sort of woke up to the free man on the land movement. So I had a $9,000, I was in America at the time, $9,000 credit card bill. I sent that one letter asking those questions, even though that I was actually paid up in full. I wasn't in arrears or anything. I sent that letter just asking for evidence, and next thing I knew, I had a debt collector after me.
That's encouraging.
Basically means that they've written off the debt. Right? They've sold it to somebody else, and that's it. And it was gone after that. I got rid of the debt collector letter, and that was it. But as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't go the cease and desist route. It's the notice of conditional acceptance exposing the fraud.
Right. Oh, that's very interesting. I mean, as long as you don't mind the debt collector coming along.
We like them, don't we?
Well, you don't have to go. You can get rid of the debt collector very easily, even before they start coming round.
Oh, right. Okay. I might need some assistance on that, because...
I was going to say, can you elaborate on that? Because I know somebody's going to say, what do you mean?
How would you do that?
Okay, well, the debt collector is pretending to be the holder of the debt. Right? They're pretending. They're not. In order for that to happen, they need to have something called a deed of assignment. Okay, they need to have proof that they are acting as agents for whoever you supposedly have the debt with. And they don't have that, because all they've done is they've paid, say your debt is for £1,000, they've paid like a tenner for that, right? for the privilege of being able to collect it from you, and they're hoping to bully you into paying the whole £1,000 plus whatever they want to add on top of it. So they've got no right to collect or do anything at all. But if you give them give them the right to do it, and it's easy for you to give them authority, then they're going to start building a house of cards against you, and that sometimes culminates in going to county court or Northampton bulk centre, and issuing CCJs and that. But you can literally stop it in its tracks by saying, look, I don't know who the hell you are. I don't know what this supposed debt that you say that I owe you, because you don't owe them anything. They're just somebody just saying, oh, you owe me £1,000. So you literally confront them. And most of this is you standing in honour, being an honourable person, and confronting them and asking for proof of what they're saying, because they never have proof of what they claim. So that's it.
And it's interesting because I mean, when they came for my van and they said, "Well, we're going to take your van," then I said, "Well, where's your warrant? Where's your proof?" And they said, "We don't need any." And the 3 policemen are there, and all that intimidation that's going on. But I'll ask them next time for a deed of assignment.
Well, they will say things like that. Remember what I said last time about taking your clothes back to a shop without the receipt?
Yes.
Yeah, the bod on the desk will say, no, you can't do that, right? And that's a lie. But 9 out of 10 people are going to accept the lie. If you can get past the first boss, right?
Yes.
Just like a video game, get past the first boss, right, and get to the final boss. You'll find out that you can do that. So it's a question of getting past, right, the liar at the front desk.
I think it's also believing in yourself, isn't it? Because you know you are right, and believing in your truth. And this is where the sovereignty comes into it. So when you know that and you've got that confidence, then it's a lot easier to stand up to them and say, no, I've got the rights to do this. You're just performing
They'll use your guilty mind. They'll use your guilty mind against you.
Yeah.
Because we've been taught to feel guilty.
That's right.
Right.
For everything. Yeah. The schooling system. Is that one done? Any other comments from anybody there else? We've got another question.
Yes.
David Edelman.
Totally agree with Dave, but I would drill down into why the cease and desist is an overrated remedy, certainly with banks, because the problem with a cease and desist is that it encapsulates within it a claim. And we're trying to, as Dave quite rightly highlights, we're trying to avoid claims where we're trying to we are putting the ball in their court to justify their claims. So within a cease and desist, you're claiming that you're being harmed, and you're putting them on notice to stop the harm and to cease and to desist from doing it. But what harm is it that you're alleging? Who is it that you're claiming? What is it they're claiming? How is it harming you? And on what basis is that harm causing you a problem? If you see what I mean, I'm not expressing this very well, but basically there's a problem with cause and effect when you use a cease and desist. It's far more appropriate when there's a more identifiable harassment or nuisance or distress that's much more manifest in the real world. If it's just happening on paper, cease and desist is more problematic. I don't know if I made much sense there, but I think, so conditional acceptance is definitely far superior for things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense if it's on paper, but people are banging on your door going, give us the money.
Yeah.
Or we'll blow your house up. That's
the thing, because they don't know. They just following instructions, aren't they? And they think they're in their right to follow those instructions. So no matter what you say, they're going to carry on doing what they're going to do.
Come what may.
Come what may. Come what may.
Can I interject for a moment, please?
Yes, Jill.
Can I just ask Dave what an appropriate response would have been from you when you had that intimidation with 3 police officers at the door together with a debt collector? What would they advise that you actually were able to say to them? Would you have asked for the deed of assignment?
Can I just jump in ahead of Dave? I'm only doing that because I've had direct experience of this. It's actually, there's a very simple remedy. It's Section 26, Criminal Justice and Courts Act 2015. Yeah? Abusive position by constable. You ask them, are you here to keep the peace? If they say yes, in which case you just say, well, what evidence do you have that there has been or is about to be or likely to be a breach of the peace? I'm a man or woman in my own home. How can I breach the peace? So when I did that, they were gone in literally 2 microseconds. They can go down for 14 years for causing you loss and causing a gain to an agent who really should be arrested for breaching your peace. So there's the quick remedy. It features on my personal protection card, and I had to put it into action to prove that it works, and it certainly does work. The police they just said, "Oh, we have no business here. It's clearly a civil matter. Thank you, bye." And as soon as they go, it's amazing how quickly the agents lose heart and skedaddle. It's a pantomime. They're just using the police to put on a show for you and hope that it will cause you panic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
I was gonna say, that's the first thing I was going to say as well. That stand down the police, right? Because they're supposedly the big stick to make you comply, right? But you can stand them down with the Criminal Justice and Courts Act 2015, and just they have to stand by now. They can't do anything. But there's a thing in common law called castle doctrine. I don't know if you've come across that.
Sounds good.
Does sound good, doesn't it?
Castle doctrine is your right to defend your home and your property and yourself using reasonable force up to and including deadly force. Right? So, it comes out of an Englishman's home is his castle, yeah? And so anybody trying to breach your castle is engaging in an act of war, okay? And you have the right to defend yourself. And now we'll see. Sorry.
No, I was sorry. I didn't mean to jump in, but I was just going to say that's really interesting because I've heard people being told upstairs to boil the kettles and be ready by the windows to pour them down when they're breaking into the house.
And the tar as well, yes.
And using, because they said something about the castle something. It's clearly exactly as you've described.
Castle doctrine, yeah. So I was actually going to make a range of baseball bats with reasonable force written on them.
Can I just say that in the ordinary course of events, and I hasten to add and stress ordinary course of events, so my assumption is that you're not a targeted individual and that you've not got some kind of criminal record that would make the police want to get their own back for whatever reason. In the ordinary course of events, you are Joe Average. There is no question. Nobody is going to even attempt or even pretend that they're trying to get into your home. It's just not happening. In the ordinary course of events, I hasten to add.
We've seen so much footage, haven't we? That's the thing that I think where it goes wrong on social media, when these things go viral, you see the coppers coming to the door and bashing in the door and pulling people out. And I know it's a fear tactic, but that I think is what goes into a lot of the general public's sort of mindset, thinking, I can't do that because the police are going to come around and arrest me and put me and whatever. And sometimes they do. I know we've got people on this panel that has happened to, but that's enough to put the fear of God into people.
Karen, can I just say that?
I was just going to say, you've got to understand that they're using psychology against you, right? Remember, guilty mind, right? So if you've got any sliver of guilty mind, they are going to exploit that. These people are masters of psychology. So they put TV programs on. If you can't pay, they will take it away. That's there to program people into believing these people could do all this stuff, right? So if you show any weakness whatsoever. And one of the shows of weakness is when people say, "Well, I'm vulnerable," or "I've got a bad leg," or whatever it is. That's like a red rag to a bull to them because they know they can put enough pressure on you to make you fold, right? So it's literally knowing a few bits of legislation like the Criminal Justice and Courts Act for the police, and knowing that the bailiffs, whoever they are, cannot come into your house. They cannot literally they can't do anything, right? Yeah. If you stand up with no fear in your heart, right, they have got no alternative but to get lost.
Can they take your car?
Well, if they clamp your car, tell them, right, take your property off my property. I'm going to give you 10 minutes or I'm cutting the thing off. And then, have an angle grinder ready or have somebody who's got one, right? Cut the thing off, put your invoice for £800 for your clamp removal fee and tell them that they can claim back the damage to the clamp, as long as they provide proof of purchase.
But can they remove your car? That was a threat I got, that not so much clamping. So I'd wake up in the morning and my car would have disappeared. And then I'd have all that ag to go and get it back. And I think that's what puts a lot of people off as well. Can they do that, or do they do that? No, they can't.
Right,
but they do.
they'll start. They again, they have to go through steps. Right, first of all, they got to put a notice on your car to say that they're moving it or something, or they'll clamp it to make sure it can't get anywhere, and then they'll start threatening you with bringing a lorry down. And sometimes, if they sense weakness, they'll get the lorry down there, and they'll keep pushing you until they drag it away. It's again, they're using our fear against us and our ignorance. And, you just need to know a bit about what's going on and then stand up against them without fear.
No, I totally agree. I would just say this, David, People's Lawyer, because also this would lead into what you're doing, People's Lawyer. It's the education, the way we have been indoctrinated through our system in the West. Well, you're going into school, you're being told to stand up, put your hand up if you're at the toilet, sit there, do this, do that. And we're just used to that. And we're a very polite nation. Yes, please, no, thank you, sorry, lining up in queues. We're so used to that. So it's a whole new mindset. And I think the reason I wanted to gather you guys together to do this Lawful Remedy was to instill confidence in people that want to take action now. We've had so many people doing the talks and workshops and seminars and conferences, which is great, coming on Richard's show. But now this is the time to actually take action and bring people together. And I think in your local communities, it's really important to have support. It's really important. So if this does happen, you can phone your next door neighbour or Fred down the road, and then you've got that support. Sorry, David.
Well, I can only half agree with that, Karen, because ultimately we're being challenged to stand on our own 2 feet. I don't have 3 feet or 4 feet. I've only got 2 feet. So I had an emergency, well, not an emergency text, but a panicked text from one of my best friends. And he said, they're threatening to come and visit me. This is one of the DCA's, debt collection agents. So I went psychological on him. I said, right, do you think they're going to come with a gun? And he said, no. So I said, do you think they're going to come with a machete? And he said, no. Next question, do you think they're going to come with a knife? And he said, no. So I said, do you think that they're going to come with a jemmy to wreck your door? Well, no, because no, absolutely not. So what's the problem? And he calmed down and he could see what I was getting at, that is basically a psyop and that he needs to just calm down. The other thing I would add is that people need to know something called the golden question, which I developed from something that Mark Horn said to me one day. I forget where he said it, but the golden question is when they arrive, if they do arrive, or you can send it to them in print before they even arrive, is what claim are you making to my property or my offspring, if it's boys or girls, on what lawful basis, and with what evidence in support, or with what living testimony in support? And they can't answer any of those questions. It would compromise them. So that's the golden question, which is which fleshes out Dave's Castle principle into an actual tangible remedy. The power of the question will help you stand on your castle power. Yeah.
Yeah, Sook's little hands up there.
Sook's got his hand up. Sook.
You're on mute, Sook.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't have my hand up. I was just moving around.
Just stretching.
Just waving. Are you just stretching?
It was indeed, yeah.
Saying hello.
We've only got small, tiny little windows to see the other panellists, just in case that you wanted to say anything. Does anybody else want to say any more on that before we move on? If you do, just wave at the camera and we'll see. And I'm scanning across the top.
Well, the other thing that I could have said is that I could have asked him, do you think they're going to come with a warrant? And the thing is that it's just a trivial debt. So there's no warrants for trivial debts. And even if there is a warrant, they have to, as Dave says, they have to go through due process. They have to give you formal notice that they're going to visit. And if these are bona fide legitimate court enforcement officers, they will be respectful. And if you just say, I'm not going to consent to anything you're going to ask me to do or sign, so you're wasting your time, they will say thank you very much and depart. It's only the cowboy, pseudo, fake pantomime enforcement bullies that take a more belligerent attitude, and you need a more assertive approach with them. So, but with the bog standard court agent, just be civil. They're civil, and they're not going to get anything out of you.
Fantastic.
Can we go to Marianne Fitzgerald says, what did the man say at court? The two sentences, as we never got the answer, please. Was that something one of you guys had mentioned
Dean.
earlier?
Yes, Dean. Hello, Dean.
Yeah, hi.
You were on the show, if you remember, and we did it in two parts. And in first part, you came into court. You were summoned to court, and you came in and you cited a nice piece of prose. And then you said at the end of that show that you had whittled it down to two lines. And obviously the viewer hasn't seen that show because you did say it in there. Could you remind us what it was?
Yeah, so the 2 lines are I do not understand, followed by I require a trial by jury. That is it. You can't memorize anything else. You just stay and hold those words in court. That's what you'll get.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Perfect.
There we
Thank
are.
you.
Nice
Well done.
and
Well
easy.
remembered. That was easy. Well, yeah, excellent. We've got a question from Slim here. Good question. What rights do we have to protect our property from trespassers?
Ah.
Oh.
What rights?
Yeah, what rights? Dean.
Well, I'll break it down into 2 sections. The first section is somebody could unknowingly, so meaning by accident, walk onto your property or land. Okay? So this would not be with intent. So the intent is not there. So that is initially what they would call a civil case. So if you was to approach them and say, excuse me, but you are trespassing upon my land, would you please vacate at the nearest exit? Now, the moment that they would say either no or they knew that they were trespassing, then that becomes criminal because of the intent. So what makes something go from criminal to from civil to criminal is the intent behind it. And I will give you an example. If 2 young lads were playing football next to a car and one of them accidentally kicked the ball into the car window, that is a civil offence because there was no intent. If the same 2 boys walk past the car and one of them has got a brick and smashes the same window, that is criminal because of the intent. So with regards to the trespass, it's all about the intent. Are they there knowingly or unknowingly?
Brilliant. And the question, what was the question again? It was, what can you do to stop them?
Yeah.
So you're
well,
not really
if it's criminal, you can actually make an arrest or you can call for the police, because once it turns from civil to criminal, and I've just explained the way that it turns, the police would be able to assist you if you didn't wish to make your own arrest.
If you put signage up that people walk past that says private property, please keep out.
Yes. So the reason that is up is so that it removes the doubt from going to civil to criminal. If there is no sign, somebody could mistakenly go onto the land. But where there is many signs, they can't then use that as an excuse. Oh, I didn't know I was trespassing. What, you didn't see that 500-foot tall sign saying "Do not cut the grass"?
That's some sign, isn't it?
You need to go to Specsavers, eh?
And you've only got a small lawn, but there's a 500-foot sign. Yeah, brilliant.
Somebody's asked People's Lawyer, what, as a targeted individual, you refer to unless you are a targeted individual.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what is a targeted individual?
Well, it's someone who's getting up the authorities' nose, basically, for whatever reason. There is a concrete example. Obviously, I can't name names, but there was a woman in the freedom movement who used to wave her clipboard in front of the police when we had freedom rallies, and was ostensibly a peacekeeper, warning the police of various crimes that they were committing, and that got up their nose. So what at some point someone did behind the scenes was trawl the internet for any dubious comments she may have made in the past. They found something, and just for that comment, she was put away for 6 months in a maximum security prison. So in other words, if you have made yourself vulnerable to attack by going on the attack yourself for no obvious reason, in other words, in commercial law terms, you've gone into dishonor because there's no reason to attack anyone ever. You only ever have reason to either maintain the peace or defend your territory or defend your bodily integrity. But going on the attack is never appropriate. Karma, which can be a bit of a bitch, will find a way to remind you of the error of your ways, and they will throw the book at you if they get the opportunity. So don't give them the opportunity. So that's targeted individual, basically. Someone who has, in effect, laid themselves open to revenge from the authorities.
Thank you.
Can I just add to that, Karen, just very briefly? I'm constantly targeted, and I've already been closed down twice in this interview by GCHQ and others. So if it freezes and I disappear, you know that that is somebody else's action on me in this interview.
And do you also think, Chris, the experience that you've recently gone through, which is horrendous, do you think that's because you were a targeted individual? Because you've been very active for many years, haven't you? Not just the last 4 years. You've really been on this path for a long time.
Yes, I mean, yes. Particularly because of the 3 unlawful imprisonment sentences and other things, which I complain about and so on. So, yes, it does happen. And I know it's been happening really since 2003, really.
And I suppose the question might be, is it worth it if you're being hassled because you've said a few things or done a few things, and then you think, do you know what, is it worth? Because you must be in a position now where there's no backing down for you, Chris.
No, and I think it's important. I did think about this before my sons left home, but after I was a single person again, in a sense, without responsibilities for them and others, I thought, well, I have to do it. You know, once you know what's wrong and why it's wrong, you have to do something about it.
And I mean, there's that whole business about when you're challenging. I think we may have mentioned it, or I was just in conversation with somebody else. If you're trying to challenge something that you feel is unjust or immoral, like, for example, the council tax, but not specifically, and you're married and your partner doesn't want to do that, that can put that person, the partner, in a difficult position if you've decided stringently to stand there and stand your ground, when the other one may go, yeah, but if we lose the house, it's the both of us that lose out, not just you.
Yeah, that's a valid point. May I just say, because Magni here says, yeah, my girlfriend let them in, the bailiffs, because she was embarrassed the neighbours would see the bailiffs. So, you know, you
But that's a valid thing, isn't it, sadly?
Yeah. Not everybody is really wanting to stand up and be counted because of what's going on. So,
and you're also asking...
Psychology.
Yeah,
but you're also asking other members of the household not to open, if you say don't open the door to people,
yes,
and they're expecting a parcel, and they say, oh, well, I thought it was the postman.
Yeah.
And then it turns out it's not the post you're expecting.
Absolutely. And I think Chris made a valid point. If you've got dependents, if you've got young children or elderly parents or something that you're caring for, that partly that takes your energy, but also, there's vulnerable people that you want to protect. So the fact that you can be doing this fight on your own, not on your own, but without those dependents, makes it a little bit easier, as hard as it is. But again, when you know the truth, you either sit back and ignore it, which isn't kind of what we've been put on this planet to do. When you know the truth, you've got to stand up and fight the fight, I think.
Just a little point on that, right? They're coming for our houses. They're coming for all our property. Yeah, you will own nothing and be happy. They're serious about it. Okay, so human nature is that you want to, keep what you've got, and not rock the boat so that they don't look at you. right? That's what they're hoping. So their method of attack isn't a straightforward, frontal assault. It's death by 1,000 cuts. They're chipping away our ability to survive in this system, right? So that we get desperate and end up, in debt and compliant.
Where will they put us? And just a random question here. They're coming for our houses.
Haven't you seen?
We hear this, but where are they going to put us all?
In those big prisons.
Oh, just look at America right now. Right, there are tent cities popping up everywhere, and that's it. There's homeless through the roof. Tent cities popping up everywhere, and lots of desperate people are trying their best to hang on in their homes even though they've got nothing. So you're looking at the future right now over there.
And it's because when we first heard that, you alone nothing can be happy, and we all laughed, and I thought, well, how are they going to take what we've got? And it is through stealth, it is through taxes, it's through utilities, it's through council, and the bills are just horrendous. And it's like they are focusing on the middle class, because working class have suffered since day one. Now they're going for the middle class. They will come for the wealthy, but the wealthy think, we're all right, mate, and they turn their head away. But
is that a good
psychology
time?
Again?
Yeah,
it's a good time to talk about trusts then.
Hence,
does this lead into the trust conversation?
Yes, can I just throw something in, just because I think it needs to be said? It's all very well that we know what we know and that we know that we're in a war, but if we are living with people who either don't know that we're living in a war or suspect that we are, but they're not drilled into how to fight that war, then it's the principle of we're only as strong as our weakest link kicks in.
Right. Yeah.
And I wish I had a pound for every time someone said, when I said, how did the bailiffs or whatever you want to call them get in? Oh, well, my wife let them in, or my daughter let them in, or my cousin let them in. Well, that is serious negligence on the part of the so-called warrior, because a warrior will train up their comrades so that it becomes an effective team effort.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
As long as you're on the same page, because again, there's been a lot of divide and conquer through this, hasn't there? A lot of, through the whole 4-year period that we've gone through. Some people just don't want the fight, or they don't understand it, or they're very happy to go along and pay the bills, and because they don't know, what's happening. So it's a difficult thing. I mean, things start, you fall out with your friends, you fall out with your family, you fall out with your neighbours, and that's how wars start. So you do have to get everybody on side. But if you have that difference of opinion, it's very challenging. And I was speaking to somebody the other day talking about you could have a difference of opinion, but that still isn't the answer. You've both got to agree to take this to the next level. Somebody either has to acquiesce, or I'm not talking about in what they're doing to us, but within this freedom movement, somebody has to kind of acquiesce, and you have to come to this hand in hand. It's got to be in balance, because if you have got that difference of opinion, then you've got conflict, and that's when it gets bigger. But trust, right? Shall I ask this question that came from Ant?
And just I'm just looking at a question here, just in case it's relevant to where we are. A councilman claimed a doc he showed at a meeting does not exist. I asked under FOI for a copy of the doc and was told it does not exist. How should I obtain a copy? Maybe it doesn't exist.
Maybe it doesn't. Well, under freedom of information.
What was the doc?
Yeah.
Does it say?
Well, he doesn't say. It just says he claimed a doc that he showed at a meeting does not exist. Can you tell us what the doc is, and maybe we can find that out?
Yeah. Who that's from?
Well, the relevant legislation would be Data Protection Act 2018. I know that it was a FOI and not a GDPR data subject access request, but concealing or blocking access to information. If it related to anyone's individual personal data, then you could bring it under Data Protection Act 2018, Section 173, subsection 3, concealing or blocking access to data. So, and that's a criminal offence.
Wow.
Very good.
Just before you go to the other question, thanks for that, David. Here's a question related to letting the bailiffs in and what have you, and I have to lift up because I can't quite see it properly. What if my landlady lets the bailiffs in while I'm on holiday?
Oh. Well, she shouldn't.
She shouldn't, but there's not a lot you can do. Not a lot you can do about it.
Yeah.
No.
If you're on holiday,
Yeah.
It comes
Yeah.
back to telling and not to let anybody
That's
in,
right.
I
And
suppose.
get people on side.
As Dave-
Explain.
Total up the loss and deduct it from the rent.
There you go. Perfect. Right. Should we do the trust?
Yeah, so the trust. So we had a question last week that was sent to me, and it said it was mentioned that not doing this. This is from Anthony. It was mentioned that not doing the census or not returning the voter card might remove you from the electoral roll. Well, apparently it won't. That was one point, so we can come to that. But it was mentioned using trusts to protect your assets, and there was no advice on how to set a trust up. I know people who have paid a lot of money to set up, like hundreds of pounds here, to set up a trust, and it has taken years to do so. The question is that needs answers are: number one, how to remove property from the land registry; two, how to set up a trust, not through a solicitor, to protect your assets; three, is it possible to remove cars from the DVLA, or how to best protect cars from forfeiture by the authorities; and four, is there a way to remove yourself from the electoral roll? It would be good to establish local action and information groups, but getting people to meet up is very painful. We know that. So there's lots of questions there, and I think we should maybe ask Jill to come on board because she's done some of this with positivity, and then see what the panel want to say
afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've just been joined by Pete as well, haven't we? Pete the Hat. That's
Pete the Hat. Hello, Pete the Hat.
He's muted, so he can't say hello, but he's there.
I can say hello. I can do that if you'd like.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So, hi, Pete.
Apologies for the late.
That's all right.
Got in the end.
So we'll go to Jill then.
Yeah, to see her story. Yeah.
Jill.
So did you want me to talk about the tax, the deed of trust? Because I thought you were actually talking about setting up a trust to protect your assets.
Yeah, I think we are here. I think we are talking about that.
Well, I have set up a private trust, but the little success story that you wanted me to talk about is related to Chris Coverdale's method of lawful tax resistance. So, would you like me to speak about that?
Let's do the happy story. Should we do the happy story
first?
Happy story? And then we can go on to the panel.
All right. Okay. So I met Chris a couple of years ago. He very kindly came to our house. We've been doing little workshops every now and then, have a group of people. So I was really fascinated by the way he was approaching it, because I had approached council tax before, and I still do. I haven't actually paid council tax since 2020. But the method of dealing with them is basically DSAR and data subject access request, and an awful lot of questions and an awful lot of correspondence back and forth. And when Chris came along, educating us on the actual laws that exist with the Terrorism Act and the United Nations Act, and that we are actually, as individuals, breaking the law if we have the knowledge that we are partly, at least, funding genocide and war, then we have a responsibility to inform the tax office that we have now this knowledge, and that we will put this money into a trust until they prove that they're not contributing towards these war efforts anymore. So we all know that that spending our money on nefarious things and without anybody's vote or permission, they just keep sending huge amounts of money to Ukraine and so on and so forth. So for years, I'd actually been a member of different organisations, originally CND and then Campaign Against the Arms Trade and different ones. And always there was another one that sort of said to take out a certain amount of tax, and they were ending up in lots of trouble. So this seemed like a really good approach. So I had a go. So last year, we're self-employed, myself and my husband. We've always returned a tax return, always paid our taxes. And last year, I decided that we weren't quite ready to just not do any of it. So we employed an accountant to do the returns for us. And my tax bill was just generated at just under £1,000. And so, I can log into my own tax portal, and right enough there it said 900 and something or other. So I decided to do the deed of trust, which is a very simple method, actually. It's really quite easy, and all the information is on Chris's website. But he talked us through it as well. So filled out a very simple form with a covering letter, wrote to Jim Harrer, who's the CEO, I think, I'm not sure if you call him, the head of finance anyway, HMRC, and sent the letter off. Got a reply from a minion, and it said, thank you for your complaint, and we've referred it to the first stage of the complaints department, etc. And so I asked Chris, what do I do? And we had a letter to write back to say, I'm not making a complaint, and I should really reiterate that I am following the law, the United Nations Act, the Terrorism Act, and, I'd already enclosed the copies of those before. Please, understand that this is not a complaint, and I'm withholding the money. It's in a trust. You are the primary beneficiary. I am the secondary beneficiary and the trustee. And if you can prove that none of my tax monies are going towards war, then I will pay you the money. I'm holding it in trust for you. If you can't prove it by the end of the next tax year, April the 5th, following year, then the money will go to the second beneficiary. So you've laid it all out, basically. If you can't prove that you're not funding these nefarious causes, then the money will return to me, basically. So I sent that. So I said all that, and then I got a second letter, which was more or less saying the same as the first letter. And I just left it alone for a while and didn't do anything about it. And then I logged into my tax portal just to have a look, and it was marked as paid. So I think
it was marked as paid. Fantastic.
Yeah, just marked as paid. Obviously, they didn't write and say, "Okay, then." we take on what you said. Yes. They just took it off. It's just taken off. And this year I haven't returned a tax.
It's closure, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people I know that have been doing this, they say, well, I haven't heard anything for 18 months or 2 years or whatever, but you're still like looking back on your shoulder thinking, are they going to come? Yeah. What's going to happen? But the fact that you've had closure, and I think that's really, really important. That to me is a very happy story. And well done, Jill and Chris, for all that.
Because you've made it quite clear that if they haven't done anything by the following tax year, then that's it. You've given them the opportunity to cure, if you like. They haven't cured it, so that's it. That's draw a line under it. Yeah, I think
brilliant stuff. Thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Jill, for joining us on that. So I don't know if the panel have any comments to say, especially because I know we sort of just thrown the two together with the questions that Ant put in, but I just wanted the happy story thrown out.
Well, it must be encouraging for Chris that his hearing work. But who's that talking?
Yeah, sorry, that was me. I was just going to say, if you could just read the question about the land registry again, please, Karen, because it's been some time.
It's quite a long one. Okay, so it was mentioned. Also, it was mentioned using trust to protect your assets, but there was no advice on how to set up a trust. I know people who have paid £1,600 plus pounds to set up a trust, and it's taken years to do. Questions that need. So, number one, how to remove property from the land registry. Number two, how to set up a trust not through a solicitor to protect your assets. Number three, is it possible to remove cars from the DVLA, or how to best protect cars from forfeiture by the authorities? Number four, is there a way to remove yourself from the electoral roll? Which one would you like?
Hear me on that?
Yep.
Yeah, got the land registry one. What? Dean's just suddenly. Oh, there he is.
No, it's just that there must be a delay between my signal and your signal. That's all.
Yes.
So, there is no form to deregister something, and I have seen people that have said, "Oh yes, this form is to deregister," and they say that they got it from either DVLA or the land registry. Well, if you are going to give them more information, that is not a way to remove your information. So the only way that I know of that would be the equivalent of deregistering either land or property or a car is at the point of sale from one person to the next. And I use the word person correctly. So at the point of sale, the previous person that was registered as the so-called owner or keeper would inform the land registry or the DVLA that they are no longer the owner or the keeper. And then the second new owner, new keeper, so to speak, doesn't give them any information at all. If you involve the government in any way, shape, or form, then you are consenting to their system.
So, but then could you not, sorry to interrupt there, but could you not sell your house to get it off the land registry to a fictitious version of you? If you were, say, an actor, you would have a stage name. So you could say, instead of Richard Vobes, I'm going to be Richard Burton.
Oh.
Okay, so
good choice.
I completely understand what you are saying, right? But the problem is going to come in where, if there is any altercation with that property, how are you then going to prove that either you or someone else owns it if you're using a fictitious Mickey Mouse name? How are you going to prove if somebody comes and robs it from you?
Well, I suppose if you were using that name and the government doesn't know it, but you, like in an actor or an entertainer, say I was, people used to call me the Great Ricardo many years ago, and I could say I've sold my house to the Great Ricardo. Hey, it's Ricardo. Hey, here he is. And then you can prove historically that you have been otherwise known as the Great Ricardo. It's my house, so you keep it off of my house.
Okay, so with that in mind, is that you are going to use the process of witnesses, yes?
Yes, I suppose it would be.
Okay, so your witness or witnesses would need to agree to such a thing, and that is fine.
Right. But of course, not everybody will be otherwise known as the Great Ricardo,
No.
which is a great loss to society.
Do you see what I'm trying to get at? Is that
yes.
There's two types of worlds. There's one where you involve the government, and there's another world where you don't involve the government at all. And you were saying that, well, if I put it in this Great Ricardo name or whatever it was, you're going to need something to back it up. So don't just make a real fictitious thing. Have it so that you, if the SHIT hits the fan, you have something that will back it up. Even if that's witnesses, that's fine. But have
and
something.
what would you suggest then if you were to do it and you wanted to sell it or you wanted to get out of the system? What would you suggest?
Okay, so even in my very early talks in 2001, I didn't go beyond the basics of trust. So what I mean by that is the three roles of the trust, and that was it. Because people need to understand the trust system itself. If you do not understand it, do not do it. I don't like monkey see, monkey do. I like monkey to be able to understand what the monkey is doing. So that means you need to know it before you do it.
But the question I'm asking you is, what would you do if you had if you were the questioner and wanted to get your property?
How do you set one up? So she needs to know, whoever that is asking the question needs to know how to do it, and then therefore that question will not be needed to be asked.
But she might want to know how you do it.
And this book
I meant. Private trust. If I've got a private trust, I am not going to tell her about it because it is private.
Right. Go on, Karen.
Well, there's a book that I mentioned the other day that I'm part way through. That I don't know if you can see it because the light. Oh, hang on. This camera.
This camera.
God, it's all going to collapse. That one?
Yeah,
no?
That one.
That one.
I mean, it's out of focus.
It is out of focus.
That's all right. I can.
It's hard to get hold of now. Oh, there you go. Understanding Trust and Equity by Alistair somebody. It's brilliant. And it's written for lawyers. And I know a friend of mine was saying, well, we're lawyers now because we're studying law. You guys are lawyers, you know, if you're studying it, that's fine. But I think reading this, it's actually called, Understanding Equity and Trust. This is the 7th edition by Alistair Hudson. And it's very, very thorough. And it talks about the settler, the beneficiary, the trustees. And, you know, I've got to really trying to get my head around this because, oh, sorry, am I done now? Down. Because you have to understand it. There is a way. And that's when I think, oh, Mr. Schwartz said you will own nothing and be happy. But that's not deregistering, is it? That's putting things into a trust from your straw person into your living person.
I did explain just before we went on to the trust that there's no way to deregister it.
Yeah.
There's no form that you can fill out.
Yeah,
Even if they give a form, I've seen one of these forms and it says DE-register. Well, that's not even English for a start. So it's not the form to fill out to deregister something. So there is no form to deregister something.
And you can't send in. Sorry, Dean. You can't send them a notice or something to say I hereby no longer consent to my property being on your register. So please remove it immediately.
No, because what do you think they're going to do with that?
Well, I've no idea. That's why I was asking you the question. Since you're the clever club, come here asking me. I don't know nothing.
You're going to get negative comments there, Ricardo.
Yeah, no, I don't agree with that actually, because when I did the car in 21, I removed it from the DVLA. So I sent them the notice and I removed it. As a living man, it was my property. The chassis number now belongs to me, no longer belongs to you, and that was accepted. The only thing actually in the end that wasn't accepted was the fact that they couldn't accept my insurance, because it was a mode of self-insurance that they just couldn't get their heads around. But otherwise, you can remove the property from the government. There's no problem with removing it. I agree there's no form that they're going to give you, because they're never going to consent to you taking the stuff from them. Right. But you can view it, and then that's not sovereign. Asking them for it back isn't a sovereign thing to do. If you're going to be sovereign, you tell them it's my property and that's it. And I've registered it in error or whatever the situation was. Your situation is now completely different. In law, it's a mistake of fact. You can tell them to transfer and convert your estate back into yours that they've taken, and you can also remove certain assets. Same with the aspects of the land registry stuff. There's a limited company process that we've been through before, and it's on the Sovereign Trust, the sovereigntrust.net website. There's a process there, and people can set up their own trust for free on there. There's a template, and people can go and have a look at that. And the book that Karen just went through, and a number of other books and resources are on there from Trust. What we've got to remember from Trust is going back in the first trust that's set up is the one between the creator, your soul, and your body. Right? The creator is the grantor. Your soul manages the material resources on behalf of your body as the beneficiary, which benefits from the material resources. Your soul can't consume material resources, therefore it can only be the trustee and not the beneficiary. It's quite simple, that initial trust at the highest level, and everything else is just a set of triangle trusts hanging off that, right the way down to all these other trusts that we talk about. So DVLA, this, that, and the other, these people have put themselves in between you and the creator as an authority. Yes. So there are different ways of doing it. You can dance the dance, like Dean's saying, within the legal system, or you can be sovereign and say, I'm not going to agree with this at all. I can remove whatever property and assets I want. But I don't agree that you can't remove it, because what will they say? Well, they don't need to say anything. Just like when the inspector asked me, and I said to him, I've removed it from DVLA, and he said, well, did they agree it? And I said to him, well, I wasn't asking for their approval, sir. I was letting them know out of honour and consideration. I'm not asking for approval because they have no authority over me. At which point he smiled and he walked away because he knew I was right. So you can do it, but you've got to understand that that's your truth, and that's the way that you want to deal with it. What Dean's saying is right in terms of his thing. The only bit I don't agree with is that you can't remove it, because there are methods for removing it.
And would it be the case, like so many of these things, that we've never consented as such, or as we've consented without bringing both minds to the, like in an agreement, you both have got to be open about it.
Yeah, we haven't shaken hands, have we?
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, to some degree, the equal thing is that people don't know what the rights are. So because they don't know any different, you can argue all they've done is care for you in a situation where you had no idea what you were supposed to be doing. Yes. But the point at which you found out, you have to remedy that.
Right, exactly.
And that's the bit that we're talking about here. So from a trust perspective, there are ways, there are different ways. But you pay somebody else to do it for you. And then when you get hauled into court, if you can't answer what the trust is, then it's not a trust. The point of the trust is it's a trust between those individuals, or those three parties, or however many parties you set it up with, how many roles you got. That's up to you. And if you haven't understood it inherently, then it's not your trust.
Yeah, I would also argue if you have a private trust and someone asks you to declare what your trust is, you can say to them, it's none of your business, mate. It's private. That's the point. I don't have to justify anything. The problem, of course, is that you come up against police, etc., and they may not accept that as an answer. So what we do with notice, that's where my expertise lies, if you like. I agree with Suk. I would just give notice, right? I've claimed it, and I would change the jurisdiction as well. I would say it's in England now, because then they have no lawful right to address anything against you anyway. You're out of their jurisdiction. So, end of story.
And is it a valid point? I think we talked about this last week. So if you are setting up a trust, and okay, it might just be between you and your benefactor, or the settler, or the trustees, or you and God even, but is it worthwhile sending that document? Because I know it doesn't even have to be documented, it's just a verbal agreement, but obviously in today's society that won't last 5 minutes. But is it worth sending that document off to various institutions?
No, because it's a private trust. I'm not telling anybody. I don't have to declare it. It's private. It's none of your business. That's the whole point. That's why it's private.
Right, okay.
So if I get stopped by the police and my car's in a private trust and they try and say something, I'll say, no, the car's in trust. It's a private trust. Oh, could you tell me? No, I can't tell you that. It's a private trust. Right.
And then it would have been removed from the DVLA. This is the dilemma, isn't it? Because the copper's not going to say. The copper's saying, well, as far as I can see, madam, it's still in the, it's registered here to Mrs. Dodd or something, or Mrs. Smith or...
Yeah, but that's the name, right? So that's how they try and unlawfully convert you and use your name against you, right? But you don't give them your name because it's in a private trust. I'm not obliged to give you any information. It's in a trust.
Let's let Dean come back on that, Dean.
If I could just interject, there's 2 points on the actual V5 form. So there's one where the previous owner fills out and sends away. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Yes. And then there's a second slip where the new owner is supposed to fill out their details and then send that off. Yes?
Yes.
Yep.
Right. So if the previous owner sends off his piece of paper stating he is no longer the registered keeper, but the new owner doesn't, that's how you deregister it. Because I have had a copper come up to me and say, this car is showing as having no registered keeper. And I went, thank you very much. And her face dropped.
Say that again. just for clarity, because I could see a few drawers dropping. Jaws even. Jaws might be dropping as well. But...
So how I know that you can deregister something by doing nothing except buying it from one person to the next, and that person then writes to the DVLA stating they're no longer the registered keeper, that will then clock their name off, scrub it out, and it will show a blank as to who is the registered keeper. Nobody will be.
What? Right. Well, how about that?
Sorry,
Dave.
Yeah, I think there might be a change here because I recently went through this process, and the new keeper doesn't get involved. The last keeper fills in the slip, and that's it. You just get the V5. You don't. You don't, as the new keeper, you don't. Supply them with any information. It's a previous owner that does.
Correct. Yes.
So therefore, the previous previous owner is going to say, I am the new owner. But me as a new owner, I could then fill in that form, could I not?
No, you don't fill in the form now. That's the thing.
How do they know you've got the car then?
Because the previous keeper fills it in and then sends it off, and you just get the V5.
But you haven't agreed, as a new owner, you haven't agreed anything because it's been done.
You haven't agreed anything. You're automatically.
Right, but the previous owner then has to get your information and has to get it correct. Because otherwise, No.
Yeah,
No. Damn it doesn't.
No.
Go on, Dean.
So when you change the V5 form with the old owner and the new owner, so these two people are stood next to each other. The
Yes.
old owner and the new owner are stood facing each other.
Yes.
The old owner has got the V5 form, right?
Yes.
And the old owner asks you these questions. Can I please have your name, address, so I can put it on this form that I have got to send off to the DVLA?
Yes.
Will reply, no, thank you very much.
Oh, I see. So then
Okay.
he can't. Right.
But
Oh, hello.
Not over yet.
Wait.
he, the one who was the old owner, he writes to the DVLA and says, I am no longer the registered keeper owner. It's gone to somebody else. And then
Right.
you don't fill out any forms, the new keeper. You don't give them any information.
No, I get that.
Because the other one's done
Because
it.
the other one's-
done it.
Well,
So
the
you've
other
not-
one doesn't know. You just said to him, I'm not telling you anything. Tough titty, I'm off.
Or
Yeah.
you could make it. You could put anything there, couldn't you? You could put Mickey Mouse from Walt Disneyland or something. You could put anything
yeah, but
to
I
the
think,
old owner.
But I think what Dean is saying is if you don't give them the information, you just saying, here's the cash. Thanks very much for the couple. Can I have your info to send off this thing? No, thanks. I'll take my
You do,
car.
yes.
And you go. As long as you've got the slip, presumably.
Yeah, the receipt from the previous owner. Yeah, the
Right.
receipt. Yeah.
So then
Okay.
what happens when you come to sell the car? Because then you haven't got a V5, have you?
No, but if you get into any difficulty, you've got the receipt from the previous owner, so he could be called as a witness that you
Yes.
handed over some money for that car, right?
Yeah. If you did a speeding fine, though, would it go to the previous owner?
No, because he has written saying he's no longer the registered keeper.
Oh, right, yeah, no, of
So
course, yeah.
he's cleared his
So
name.
he's cleared his name,
Yes.
and the car is mysteriously driving somewhere until somebody
Yes.
pulls it over,
And
and then it's up to the policeman to try and extract that information. But if you just stay stum and say it's a nice day here, isn't it? I don't know who you are.
Right,
What
so
can they
that
do?
That leads me back to what you said. Oh, could you please state that again? So,
Yes.
time before last, the last time that I got arrested, I was in the car park, and I was on the side of the road, and a policeman came to my window and said, "This vehicle is showing as having no registered keeper." I went, "Thank you very much," and his face
Which proved
dropped.
it. Yes.
And,
Can
and off he
I,
went.
Can I butt in?
Of
Yeah,
course.
well,
There's an urban myth that we need to dispel as soon as possible, that we are obliged to register things and to fill out forms. There is never any such obligation, ever. So, for example, if you move from one council borough to another, there's no obligation to tell the council. There's even a court case on this, for crying out loud. There's no obligation to, excuse me, Mr. and Mrs. Council, but I'm now living in your area, and I'm kind of a bit of a financial self-harmer. So could you send me a council tax bill, please? We've been dragged up to self-harm and to confess. There's no obligation to fill out a tax return. There's no obligation to tell a council you've moved into their borough. There's no obligation to register kids at a school. There's no obligation to do anything ever, unless you take an executive decision, weigh up the pros and cons, and decide that the pros outweigh the cons. And that's called self-governance and self-responsibility. But whatever you do, it must be having weighed up the pros and cons, and never as a result of a knee-jerk reaction thing, oh, if I don't do it, I'm going to get into trouble.
Right.
Because that's fear porn, it's Plato's cave, and it's residual post-traumatic stress disorder from your schooling.
So the best thing then for those people who do not want to pay the council tax is move. And just don't tell them when you move to the new place, because you'll never get one.
It's the simplest remedy. There are others. You could get someone who's cohabiting to advise the council that you're no longer resident, or you could even do it. You could give them notice of intention to cease residency and a specific date. And this court case says that, in effect, you're allowed to change your mind. You never actually moved out, but they'll just presume that you did.
Somebody said to me that I'm quite whether this is on the same thing or not, but somebody said to me that they had bailiff problems or enforcement problems with their house, and they were going to come after the house, so he put it on the market, and because it was on the market, they couldn't do anything with it.
Ooh.
And he left it on the market.
For a long time.
Yeah, because there's no obligation to sell it
No.
to the first person or the second or the 753,000th person who's looked at it. He just was still on the market. And I don't know if that's a ruse or whether that's honourable or what, but and it was a lovely timber-framed, old-fashioned Tudor place. And he said that's, they're after it, but all the time it's on the market, they can't do anything, apparently.
Yeah, anybody from the panel know what do you think of that one? They're all smiling.
They're
Yeah, I just think,
Chris,
great, another
Chris
way.
is chuckling.
Yeah,
Another way.
just one other thing I wanted to suggest in relation to transferring money from one person to another, and this is really why we get involved in trusts. That you don't even need to do that. There is no betting tax in this country at the moment, and so you can have a game or a bet with whoever you want to receive your property, and lose the bet, toss of a coin or whatever it is, hopefully witnessed, and transfer the money, and then the problem, the materials or the property of one sort or another. So, and then I can rent it back. So I've done that with a lot of the stuff you can see behind me, and my books and everything else. And I just rent it back from the people who won the bet.
So you've gambled away your assets, basically.
Yeah, so I don't have any assets for anybody to take.
No.
They don't belong to me.
No.
I just rent them back.
Well, I like that. Here's a question from Stuart O'Neill in the audience. Sorry, I hope we haven't forgotten about you. And he says, "What if you have to visit? What if you have to visit the council for housing benefit?" And actually, on that note, a lot of these things, I would assume, is that you're either solvent or you have a job. But if you're on, say, universal credit or any kind of dole thing, or you've got any kind of stuff, and you go against the government in some way, they can presumably stop all of that. Any of our panel want to comment on any of that?
No, they can't. They can't actually, garnish from your benefits. I can't remember offhand the legislation for that, but there is some. And when I finish talking, I'll go and search it, and I'll send it to you.
No,
I think it maybe comes under the Attachment of Earnings Act, Dave. I think.
No, there's something else. There's something very specific. I mean, give me a second. I'll be back with you.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Stanley Milgram was chatting to C. Gray on the chat here, and he says that you need, I don't know how true it is, you need to take a birth certificate to a solicitor, and he will write you a document saying that you no longer use a birth name and new name, legit, first-hand experience. Does that make sense? You will.
No.
Yeah. No. Well, does it make sense, or you can't do that?
No, it just sounds like madness.
Madness, okay. Even he says first-hand experience, legit madness.
The birth certificate has got nothing to do with you. It's any dealings with that are going to be, fraudulent, mistaken, false identity, conversion. You just leave the birth certificate alone. It's not yours.
Yeah,
Good.
it's fraud.
Great. Well, it's great that these chats are coming out, and we can just, you've got the answers
I
straight
was
away.
getting ready
isn't
to
it?
do Our House on the Corner of the Street because of madness, but I lost the moment there.
Okay,
Dave.
Very quickly, it's the Social Security Administration Act 1992, section 187, says no monies can be taken from benefits.
Brilliant.
Dave, could you put that as a link in the chat box, please?
They do, though. They do take it.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Jill says that they do.
Once again, if you don't know that they can't, then they'll exploit that. You're dealing with criminals. If they think they can get away with it, they will. Yeah. If you don't know, then they'll roll over you. But if you know it, they're stuck. Especially once you told them.
That is the point, and I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? We're all, even though we know they're criminals and they're dressed up in their suits and they're ever so polite and they're nice with their letters, and then we fall under their apparent authority, even though they are probably cunning, lying bastards.
Yeah. Yeah,
maybe.
Well, a lot of solicitors, are inside, aren't there? There's a lot of corrupt solicitors that are doing time inside Her Majesty's
Council
holiday house. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Any more questions from the audience? Let's have a look and see if.
Well, whilst you're looking for questions, can I just say that Suk referred to a website. We've got somebody from the website coming on shortly, and the website is thesovereigntrust.net, and there's lots of documents. That's where I actually got that book that I referred to earlier about trust and equity. So we've got somebody coming on, I think, either next week or the following week, but the website is thesovereigntrust.net. And I think it's well worth having a look. And it's been created by anonymous people, volunteers, to get that information. And also to support you guys, that are watching Richard's channel here. We've mentioned before we're doing road shows, so we're trying to get these together. We've got 4 lined up now. So I'll give you the dates, if I may. And the plan is to get like 3, 4, 5 of these clever clogs to the road shows and a panel so that you can ask questions. And there will be a fee, obviously, because it costs money to do these things, to hire the hall and for expenses for the guys to turn up. But the dates we've got is the 26th of May in Glastonbury. And then in East Sussex, we've got the 9th of June. On the 23rd of June, we've got Buxton, which is where Dean hangs out. And then the 13th of July, we have Northwest London Swiss Cottage. So 26th of May, Glastonbury, 9th of June, East Sussex at Hope, 23rd of June, Buxton, 13th of July, Swiss Cottage. And we'll keep these rolling. If you can gather a bunch of people together, then I'm sure the panel, various members of the panel will happily, come along and help you with your various issues. So, Richard, did you find a question? There's
yes,
one.
I did find. The first question that I found is the book that you were referring to. Is it a page turner?
It's a page turner, yes. As in like a physical book.
No. Is it a
gripping?
It
is. As a I can't wait to. You have to think. You have to think. And I love books, but I get to a certain stage and I've thought enough, so I've paused it. But it's one book that I will complete because I need to. I think when you're doing this, when you're standing up in sovereignty and you want to take on these criminals, you have to know what you're talking about, which is what all these guys have done. Hello, Richard.
Hello, sorry, I'm just trying to read
the questions.
What people don't appreciate. I've got 3 cameras in the studio here, and over there, behind the cameras, are all the questions. And sometimes
here's one.
I'm actually having to go like this to find it. I don't have a little laptop with the questions.
There's one from Stuart.
Yes.
I mean, they're all coming in now. So if they did take the money out of my account, could I claim it back from the bank? Anybody? Hands up.
Who's going to go for that? Can you claim your money back from the bank?
Because they have tried to do that, haven't they? Before.
If it's direct debit, you can do a direct debit clawback, but it's always best if you can establish that an error has been made. Yeah, so I usually do a conditional acceptance process to establish that an error has been made, because if they fail to provide you with the evidence, then they've agreed with you that there's been an error. And once you've got an error established, you can actually go to the bank and request all the money you've paid back. So yeah.
I think you had somebody on your channel that talked about that, Richard, a while ago. I think I watched that video.
Yes, a chap, I think his name was Tony, if I remember rightly, and he was saying that you could request it and say to the bank that it was illegally taken or some reason like that. And
you just have to say it's an error.
It's an error, that's right, it was an error. But then it was the council tax in his case, and the council then just said, that's fine, but you still now owe us the debt. And so whatever it was, so he claimed he'd got, £72 million back, whatever the figure was. It was probably a little bit less. and then the council said, well, now you've got that money back, you still owe us the £72 million plus this year's 8,000 billion.
That's why I say you go through a conditional acceptance process to establish that the council tax isn't payable, or like Chris's approach, which I use for council tax, that to pay council tax is illegal, on my part,
Right.
So then, for them to come back and say, well, no, you owe us this money now. Well, now they've got to prove that you're wrong.
Yes. Yes.
Here's one. So, do any of the guests or the panel know anything about conveying and correcting your status?
Correcting your status?
Yes, correcting your status.
Yes, absolutely. I'm involved with something called English Counties Assembly. I'm a joint England coordinator. We're rolling it out slowly because we've got to get it right. The Americans are ahead of us, 2 or 3 years ahead of us. They've had about 6,000 or 7,000 reconvey onto land and soil jurisdiction. We probably haven't even had 600 or 700 yet. It's early days here, but we are rolling it out. We're bringing in lawful land and soil jury assemblies, lawful county assemblies. We're going to bring back ancient jurisdiction, English common law jurisdiction, but we have to do it very, very carefully and painstakingly because one slip up and we're toast. So, I have a course in which I have modules 1 to 6, and I'm telling my students, just watch out for module 7 because that will be land and soil jurisdiction. So the answer, that's a long-winded way of saying, yes, we are reconveying.
Great.
But at the moment, it's just one by one, but it'll soon be hundreds, maybe thousands, and maybe even millions, but not yet.
Dean's got his... Yeah, Dean.
David, just to ask you a question. Are you aware that the English common law is not the same as the Anglo-Saxon common law, meaning trial by jury?
Well, we're opting for English common law. It will be trial by jury.
The English common law is not trial by jury. That's the Anglo-Saxon part of our heritage.
Okay, but we might be splitting hairs. I'm in various info groups. I'll put this to the group for comment. But thanks for the heads up. There's a lot. We always get these little heads up, and it's good. We welcome them because, like I said, we don't want to slip up at a crucial moment. So, yeah, thank you. It might help if you can source that information. Show me where you've... Is this from the Democracy Defined? Is that where you've got that?
No. So the law books will only tell you so much. You've then got to go and start reading the history books and find out where the actual trials came from. It will not tell you in the law books that it was the Anglo-Saxon parts. So it's where you get your trial by fire, trial by water, trial by ordeal. It's the trial by, it is part of the Anglo-Saxon part of our history, not the English common law. That is written, that is the written stuff, case law, precedent. That is not the same as Anglo-Saxon trial by jury.
So okay, I don't want to hog the airwaves here, but what we could do is say English common law as inherited from ancient Anglo-Saxon law. Do you think that would cure that defect?
Yeah, I like it.
Right, okay, I'll work with that. Thanks very much, Dean.
No worries.
We're here to help, ladies and gentlemen. We're here to, even amongst the clever clogs themselves. It's good to see.
We're learning, aren't we?
Absolutely. Gillian's got her hand up. What would you like to say, Gillian?
Just a quick question for David. When you were talking about land and soil jurisdiction, is that to do with the allodial title?
Not as such. It's getting back into a 3D, 4D, 5D reality and away from 2D, which is paperwork and presumption. So it's getting away from presumption and paperwork and moving into a reality of fact, truth, honor, conscience. I wouldn't get hung up on terminologies. It's just moving from fake to fiction, I nearly said fake
Fiction. There we go.
From fiction to fact, from fake to real.
Dave,
Okay,
Alicia, Dave
thanks.
has got his hand up there. Yeah, Dave.
Yeah, with respect to David, I've seen this idea of status correction from the beginning of the free man movement. I've seen it come and go and come and go. I've never really seen anybody have affect the system in any way. The system doesn't change its response to you if you've done all this paperwork and so-called corrected your status. I've not seen it.
What does
I need to rebut that urgently.
Yeah,
this is not an individual process. This is a collective process, which we do one by one, but there'll be no point. I mean, I can half agree with you. If only one man does it, that man is wasting his time. It's a numbers game. So we're hoping that once the numbers are sufficient, then we have the jurisdiction corrected as a collective. This is not what you're referring to. Was attempts by individual men and women to correct their status and finding that they were a desert island in shark-infested waters. No.
What I'm referring to is that over the years there have been lots of lots of separate attempts, but there's been a lot of people selling processes and selling, we can correct your status for you and stuff like that. And I've never seen any actual.
Let me rebut that. Nobody's selling anything. In fact, when you sign up for this correction, you actually get prosperity payments because a trust has been accessed. And this is bottoms-up grassroots empowerment. There are no leaders, there are no financiers, no one's making a profit off anyone. We're simply going back into reality, into the old reality of men, women, boys and girls, and away from the corporate matrix system. It's quite straightforward, actually.
We'll go to Suk in a second. I just would like to know, just for the benefit of people watching, what is meant by correcting the status, just so that those people who quite, may not quite fully get some of the lingo that we're doing. But Suk, let's go to you to start with.
Because some of these things, they're a bit detailed for a call like this, to be honest. People have to look at them. I was just going to say the Sovereign Trust .net website that I put on earlier, the limited company process on that goes through status correction in the context of completing that process. Right, so in and of itself, I don't see it as just a small piece of a tactic. It has to be used as a wider strategy. So I don't think it's something that you can use as a silver bullet, but it is used as part of the process where we've set up and successfully secured certain estates and that are around the country. So it does work. But I accept what Dave's saying. But this is about, again, there's lots of different ways of attacking the system. Right, and people got to calm down a little bit when it comes to actually sort of disagreeing with each other. Just state your solution. Don't say the other person's solution doesn't work, because that's nonsense when you do that. Right, at the end of the day, everyone has a different strategy, and the strategies that you have, as long as they are logical, they will defeat the system. Just because Dean and I have a different strategy doesn't mean that we're not taking down a system. We're just doing it in a different way. The corruption has been layered upon layer upon layer over time, and there's lots of holes in it. Right, so we have to think like that. That's why when I say something, I try to correct it. There's always, everyone's solutions are valid, but everyone's solutions will also have certain limitations and pitfalls depending on what it's like. Mark Horn, for example, in Peacekeepers, if the courts and the judges are open, it's fine. But in a lockdown situation, Peacekeepers is completely defunct because there's no independent judiciary to go to. So Peacekeepers as a constitutional solution for long-term prosperity and independence for the futures for the children is completely null and void. It's great at the current time where you can go into and there's a judge sitting there and you come out with all the facts. I don't consent. Consent to what? There's no one to consent to. There's me and the creator, and that's it. And the peers to judge me if I'm in the wrong. So there's lots of different solutions and there's lots of different pitfalls, and you have to work out which ones work for you. Correction status has a place, and then for me, the context of that is in the limited company process, which a number of people have used, and that's in a document fully fully documented process and everything on the website that I passed on to you.
Can I just add that the key to what? Can I just add that the key to what we're doing is self-governance. That's the key. Whatever you're doing, if it moves you towards self-governance, it's a step in the right direction.
Okay, so I just want to quickly interact here and say this is one of the reasons that it's so good to have all these different people coming, because I'm often accused by certain people that by having so many people on the channel who are attacking the system from different aspects, that I'm confusing people because there's too many. And I disagree by saying everybody has their own opinion and their own way of doing things, and clearly they're working for them, or they're doing for each individual person, and I think that's great. So it's great to have a debate like this where no one's getting angry and no one's getting cross or calling names, but we're just looking at the different nuances on how to approach it, which I think is fantastic. So thank you for all of you for being up for coming on the show and being able to.
It's a discussion, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's lots of ways to win a war. It's not, not one size fits all. So it is great. It's healthy. And just looking at some of the comments here, I mean, it's great that you've answered that, because there is a lot of flack sometimes you get, and I think it's great what you're doing in your show is just allowing this platform for people to come along and share their views, whether you agree with them or not.
It's not about me, but I just wanted to say that nobody, we're not favouring anybody else over anybody else.
No.
I favour, if anybody, the audience, because they're the ones that are the most important.
Pitt's got a question, quite a straightforward hint here.
Let's hope so.
This is an easy one. Phew. Do deeds for the house exist? Where to obtain? Solicitors don't have them. The bank, the mortgage company don't have them. Can only get copies from the land registry. So where are your deeds?
Yes, because haven't they all been digitised now?
They probably have.
Unless you got them
and put them in your safe years ago.
So does anybody know anything about the deeds of the house and where you can obtain them from? I mean, presumably if you're still in a mortgage, you can't get your deeds till you've paid off.
Yes. Yeah.
I know when I got mine, I just got some very... I mean, my house was built in 1875, Victorian terrace, 2 up, 2 down. Sometimes there's only 1 up, 2 down, depending on...
How many's in the house?
Well, depending on what's happened to the house. But when I got that, it was just a crappy bit of paper, really, that said, you own the house. Well, you've got the freehold to the house. But when my dad died, his bungalow was built in something like 1931. And there were reams and old maps, and it was, beautiful collection of stuff.
And the calligraphy, perhaps, as well,
the calligraphy, and it said X marks the spot, and if you dig here,
you'll find the treasure.
On a moonlight night with take 3 paces, and there's the dead body and everything. But
but the original deeds, if then until you paid your mortgage off, they will be held with the
mortgage
lender
company, and
then they should be sent to you.
Yes.
They should theoretically be sent to you once the mortgage is paid off.
I mean, the solicitor shouldn't have them, would they?
Well, unless you ask the solicitor to keep them.
To keep them
after. It's like buying gold, you can get somebody to look after your gold if you're going to buy it.
Have you got gold?
I've got a couple of...
Would you like me to look after it?
No.
Oh.
Because then it's not my gold, is it?
No, that's
I think that's the thing. People buy gold and then they have wherever they bought it, they let them have it. But if it's your gold, you keep it.
That's where the trusts come in.
That's where,
anyway.
mark the spot and all that kind of stuff.
Right, let's have a look. Any more questions?
Here you go. Mortgage is Latin for death pledge, I think. Somebody just thrown that in. And somebody else did say about they're a professional gambler. And you're right, Chris. Well done. So they're agreeing with you. So it's nice to get positive comments. Isn't
it? That's what we should do. We should gamble and what would you...
and bury our gold.
No. Chris's thing was you gamble and then whoever wins it, you just rent it back from them, assuming that the people who win will rent it back to you.
Well, there's your trust.
Presumably, Chris, you are at their mercy if they suddenly say, "Oh, we were renting it back to you at £5 a month." Now, we don't like you so much.
Yeah,
we're renting it back at £500 a month.
Yeah, well, it's like all contracts. You've got to agree it.
Yes. Oh, I see.
And trust that person. That good old-fashioned word.
And presumably, you could do that over a long period, and say for the next 500 years, it's £1 a month.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Or if it's a trust, 80 years. I think a trust can only last 80 years, can it not?
Is there a limit to a trust, Chris?
Well, I'm really thinking of it as a bet.
Right. Yes. Sue.
Are you stretching fingers?
Stretching
or
fingers.
Yeah, no, I'm going to say something, but it wasn't on that. I was just waiting to cover something slightly different.
No, sorry, Sue. The show is descending into some. It's my fault. I appreciate that. What did you want to say?
I suppose might be slightly disjointed now, but I was at obviously this week we had the first farmers' protest.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I was there, and one of the farmers just texted me a question. They said, I'm not sure it's coming on there. So it was just whether we wanted to have that question aired.
Yes, please. Yes, no, absolutely.
Because one of the questions there they're asking is what are the farmers' rights and how could they be using them to assist in their efforts to save British farming? So I don't know if people know the background really quickly. The protest was around Save British Farming, and obviously a bit like early on with the protest that we had back in 2020, this is their first time out. So they've got the eclectic mix of political agents who are paid to do their job and organise rallies for political ends versus the sort of organic people who are there as part of a wider awakening to their rights. I suppose the key message here for the farmers is that what you really need to be asking for, you're making the effort to make demands for something, then you really need to be demanding your rights rather than specific policy changes. As farmers, you're growing the food and you are completely sovereign and should be left completely independently to live your lives and farm exactly how you see fit, as long as you're getting the food out. There shouldn't be the legislation that exists at the moment. And the law that we're talking about protects those farmers' inalienable rights. Now, the interesting bit here with the controlled opposition is that on one hand, the group that are saying save British farming, their core strategy is to rejoin the EU in a single market.
Oh, right.
So people have to understand the incongruence and the paradox in being called save British farming and saying it's not political, and then having constant rhetoric, which is orientated around anti-Brexit. And there's a lady called Liz Webster that set up the Save British Farming. And the contradictions are shocking, to be honest with you, in terms of expose. So we have to have a look. The farmers need to have a look. It's your rights that you're talking about. It's the inalienable rights that are in the Constitution. That's what you're demanding. And then you can do whatever you need to do on the farms. You're free to live there and grow the food however you need to do it. And you can sell it to who you want. And you can set up your own networks. And it'll break you free of the supermarkets. Right? And it's not a short journey. It's something that will take time to get that transition in place. But if you don't know what to demand for, these people are always going to have you demanding two or three. I mean, the three demands they have are actually quite top level. They're talking about they want honest labelling on all food. They want to ban substandard imports. I've forgotten the third one now because I've just gone a bit blank, right? And a secure UK food security, right? Now those three are inherently protected already in the Constitution, in the common law, and as Dean rightly said, in the true common law, which is in the Constitution. It goes back right through to even before the Christian elements even landed here, right? So this is the way that now, as people start to move into this more intense period of political campaigning, it's important that people understand what this panel and everything else at its root core is talking about is inalienable rights. Those rights which are granted to you because your blood flows and your flesh lives, not because you filled out any document or you got a birth certificate or anything. The other side of inalienable rights are human rights. Okay, those are granted by a government and can be changed and taken away by a government. And the things at the moment that the control people are talking about, to my farmer brothers, they're talking about your human rights. So you're going to ask for them, and then the next government comes in, they can take them away. What you have to demand for is your inalienable rights. Okay, so all the people that are out there, the NFU, Save British Farming, Liz Webster, whoever else these people are that are out there, the demands that need to be made of them are that you're fighting for your rights, not pieces of individual policy.
When you say you're demanding them, but you were saying prior to that, if you're sovereign, you're not so much demanding, you're just saying these are. But why would you demanding would be asking permission, would it not?
Yeah, and so that's why I caveat at the beginning, where the farmers are in their journey at the moment is where the rest of us were, but let's just argument say 4 years ago.
Right, okay, yeah.
And some of them have been in much longer. So they're going through that process. And part of that process, the forming process of a team, and then the forming process was they all got together and they wanted to campaign. The storming aspect of team building is now happening because the controlled agents and those people who maybe haven't thought the issues through completely are now starting to pull on the agenda. And as they start to pull, you'll start to get the little fractions in the teams. As people start to there's a loyalty thing. So-and-so was working hard, so we back them. It's not about who's nice. It's not about who's working hard. It's not about who was first on the field and organized the rally. It's about who has the logical, truthful argument to set you free and secure your rights so that you can farm, fish, do whatever profession it is you want to do free, without the government legislation and without the slavery and then being able to shut you down with lockdowns and everything else. And the key thing around that British farming bit is they've got to start focusing on rights rather than policy. And because that's the fight that everyone's asking for.
I saw a video somebody sent me today, and they were saying one of our demands is that the subsidies should be helping the farmers to grow stuff. And I just thought, well, if you're taking a subsidy, you're basically signing a contract to do what the government wants, rather than if you're not taking a subsidy.
Sure.
Whereas if you don't take it, you should be able to do whatever you damn well like within.
Because you're in contract with them, aren't you?
To some degree, but we've got to remember that 99.99% of people are good people stuck in a crop system.
Yes.
As we go through that, it's difficult. The farmers are in the most difficult position because theirs is a critical service. They have to grow the food or we all starve. So whether the policy's changed or not, it's a bit like if they can't just go on strike in quite the same way, I suppose, right? If they're being conscientious about it. So we have to get behind that and support.
Yeah.
We have to help field that, right? They've been on, all of the different professions, all the different industries, whether it was the nurses back in 2021, whether it's the farmers now, they're all put, and even some of the police, military intelligence, those people who have a conscience, all of them need the support of the wider public.
Yeah.
So from the farmer's perspective, though, for everyone to be fighting for freedom of choice, which is what the annulment by trial by jury, the ancient laws and customs give you, that freedom of choice to farm how you want, to live how you want, to take whatever medical vaccines you do or don't want, to smoke whatever herbs you do or don't. Not that I'm being biased in that one. Right, whatever it is, right. So they're the free choices that you have, and the farmers have to be looking for that. And you're right. At the moment, they're asking Parliament, what are they doing? They're opening the debate at this stage. The first wave is about opening the debate, and the people that are leading the debate are controlled politicians. They're like ex-Lib Dem and the stuff like that. They're anti-Tory. This is not about Tory or Lib Dem or Labour. This is bipartisan. It's about feeding the nation. These people need to grow up and mature a little bit and understand what it's about instead of this constant nonsense. The other thing is, just for the record, Brexit was the will of the people. What sort of Nazi mentality is it that's out there trying to reverse the will of the people?
Well, again, that was a bit dodgy, isn't it? I mean, with the numbers, what is it, 48 or 49, 51%? That's a bit odd.
It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, that was
I know we won. The Brexit. But I think it's also what you're talking about is like the word liberty and freedom, isn't it? Because when people say we're fighting for liberty, that means you've been imprisoned, basically. That's how I see it, because you're fighting for it, whereas we are free people, and that's what I think you're saying with the farmers. They're at that stage that they're fighting for their liberty because they see themselves in contract with the government, whereas really they should be fighting for the freedom, which is the right to be sovereign and just do what you agreed to do when God put us on this planet.
And the key seemed to be there for me was the trial by jury, because so much could be corrected and made better for people. Yeah. If you just brought back trial by jury, because everything can be then sorted out fair.
Yeah, fair and just.
You might make a dodgy decision on the first trial because the jury was perhaps biased in some way, but then you could bring it back, and it's not a fixed thing, is it, with trial by jury? It's continually correcting for the people of the land, as I understand it.
Yeah,
I think they should bring back. I think they should bring back trial by combat.
Trial by combat. Those are the strongest wins. Well. Yes.
Is that coming from a peacekeeper there?
Yeah, there we
allegedly,
go.
Dave.
Dave, was it Dave? Who was that came
People's
in?
lawyer. Oh, Chris.
Chris.
Yeah, very briefly, I think one thing that can help this process is to help the farmers set up a corporate taxation trust and stop paying taxes until the government meets their conditions. And the key issue is to put in the key conditions that have to be met before any taxation is passed over. And quite honestly, if they put that carefully, then there will never be an opportunity for the government to come back at them.
I don't think farmers should be, especially at this day and age with the threat from the WHO and WF rather, and their sort of policy to make us eat worms. I don't think the farmers should be paying tax at all. They should be concentrating every bit of money into providing good quality local mixed farming for everybody.
Organic.
And that's the way of doing it, really, Richard. That's exactly what we're suggesting, is make sure that you have a lawful way of doing this right now. Under the current system, it moves us into a new system rather quickly.
It's difficult though, isn't it? Because the farmers have been given so many grants, you know, to turn their barns into holiday cottages or shops.
Grow
and stuff
flowers,
like that.
that's the
Grow
thing.
flowers or monocrops or whatever. So they've been encouraged
Yep.
to do that rather than grow food.
Yeah, but
Go on,
they've destroyed the margins in the industry. They've completely changed. Farming is, by its very natural architecture, is an abundance-based economy. And these corrupt people have turned it into a scarcity-based economy. You know how many seeds one tomato plant gives you? How can you not have millions and millions more food each year when you look at how seed multiplies?
Yes.
Right? How much effort is taking for them to force scarcity into food when it's just simply was never evolved in that way. So the farmers, first of all, I know people go, oh, well, they spray this, that, and the other. That's the way that those revolutions have gone. The Industrial Revolution, Punjab's Green Revolution. Well, obviously, farming for me is close to the heart because we consider ourselves farmers in 1469 at least. So, that's why it's important that they are set free, right? Because they are the custodians of the land. And now the farmers have had to stand up. The land is essentially standing up now. We're at that final phase of this. We've had the health and all the rest of it. But at this stage, every revolution in history has been run and won when the farmers have stood up.
So listen, we've only got a few more minutes left. Is there some quick fire questions that we can get, yes or no sort of questions before we go? Yes.
Yeah, moving away from farming, although it's really interesting, but there are the questions here. Can we elaborate about the alloidal title for property?
That's not a yes or no. That's
sorry.
But it's
well,
all
you
right.
can. You can say yes or no.
No, go on. Read the question again.
Can you elaborate? Yes or no?
On what?
On the alloidal title for property.
Yes.
I think Jules mentioned it previously.
Dean's waving. Dean.
I hope that's waving. Something with his hand.
Yeah. So can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You're very much now in the dark.
Right. So if a word or a sentence has got the word title in it, it means somebody's giving it to you. Okay?
Right.
So in their system, allodial is what you might call the highest position of title, ownership. But with that, it means that you have got to defend it yourself. So I wouldn't really recommend it. If an invading army came in, you'd have to get your shovels and pitchforks out and defend it yourself. The next one down is called fee simple. So fee, F-E-E, simple. So that's like second down on the ladder. So with every drop in the ladder, you lose a certain amount of rights. And the one below fee simple is what most people have today. It's called freehold. So free, F-R-E-E, hold. Most people have got that on their property. So they're just the two levels. There's more, there's tenancy and all those things below, but they're the sort of three main levels for anybody who is not aware of it.
So Dean, thanks for that, but people are often saying, oh, but we've only got the freehold. That means that we can be kicked off the land if the king or the crown... Yeah. It's... Right.
That's that then.
Thanks very much. There
and
we
it's
are.
allodial, not alloidal, I take it. Allodial. Yes,
Is it
allodial. Allodial or alloidal?
All, A-double-L-O-D-I-A-L.
Allodial.
Yes.
There was another sort of quickie here. I've got to say it because it's from Mark, and it says, with the car situation, can Mark buy the car from Mark, then send a letter stating the vehicle was sold? So can Mark sell it to Mark, basically?
Okay, so I've done that, and I
Oh.
got myself into a slight pickle. Is that when I did all that, what this Mark is saying, but when the cops robbed the property off me, meaning the car, and it was then impounded, the people who had robbed the car asked me to provide ID to go and get the vehicle, and obviously the only ID that I could provide was the receipt, but I couldn't provide any other official ID because I'd sold it to a fiction that didn't exist.
Right. And so therefore you lost the car.
Therefore, I couldn't go and claim the car. I had no witnesses that
right.
would be witness for me. So basically, they won that round. They had that.
Not so good.
Right,
Okay,
so that's,
well,
yeah,
answered
that's,
that question.
that's a good answer.
Any other quick fire questions?
What was it? The farmers are obeying corporations because they aren't sovereign themselves. There you go. Here's a quickie from Stuart. It says, is there a difference between being born at home to being born in hospital?
Yes, one's in a
hospital,
different
one's
building,
in
one's in a
You were
house.
born alive. Were you born alive?
Well, if we're still living,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, well, the word alive means you're actually dead because they put the word A in front of live, which negates the word live.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. He's very clever, Dean, isn't he?
He's very clever. He's been doing it for a while.
He is, yeah.
He picked up
But the
book.
fact whether in a hospital or a home, it doesn't matter. It's
whether you're live.
live or alive.
Well, you
So-
might use the word living.
But in hospital, that's when you're going to get most of the coercion. Yeah.
Yeah,
If you,
You're in the
you're at
system.
home.
You're in the system.
But the coercion comes afterwards. But when it comes afterwards, then you're in a better position to rebuff it.
Yeah. We had, just for the record, we had 2 children born at home in this very house. In fact, my daughter, I think it was born in this room, more or less, where we're sitting now, some 30 years ago. And I can tell you that having 2 kids born at home is the most relaxing experience, not just for the husband, because I was making egg on toast for the midwife, but you don't have, as Dave saying, you don't get all the crap of, we've got to go and weigh the baby now, we've got to go and cut the cord now, we've got to do this, and having all those people next door screaming.
And ram needles in the feet as soon as they come out.
Yeah, I mean,
okay, bush. What's that?
we were much more relaxed, and as a result of that, none of my children talk to me. So moving on. No, they do, reluctantly, because I'm a conspiracy nut, that's the thing.
Here's a quickie-ish.
Yes.
Years ago, I claimed, it's moving, a business registration and ownership certificate for fictitious name. How do I use it? Well, that maybe not such a quickie.
We've got 7 minutes.
7 minutes. Years ago, I claimed a business registration and ownership certificate for fictitious name. How do I use it?
Why would you use it for a fictitious name? Oh, anyway, how does it? Did
Does he
anyone
mean
understand?
the fictitious name? Does he mean the fictitious name?
The fictitious name, as in...
Well, yeah, I guess.
in the-
Ownership certificate for... I guess it's a the. I think he just... Kimmy's put that in.
Well, arguably, if you're using your only name and it's an all caps name or a capitalised first and letter name or Mr. or any other title, it's a fictitious name anyway. So if you haven't understood that, it's probably not much point in going further down that road.
Right.
Okay, that's a quickie.
Thank you.
What about this one? Has anyone accessed that? Oh, it keeps coming up this every year, and I can't say that word.
Yeah, so did anyone access the Keskikave,
yeah.
whatever it is?
Yeah. Julia's saying it.
The bankers have accessed it, so don't worry about it.
That's your trust, is it? That's kind of your strawman's trust sort of thing, yeah?
Yeah.
So just leave that one alone then.
And Suka's putting his thumbs up. There we go. The bank's got the money.
Okay.
Excellent.
Any more questions? How can we get the younger generation in this movement? Oh my God, there's a question.
There's a question. It's not really a lawful question, though,
No,
is it? How can we
it's
get
not.
them in there?
We're doing our best, aren't we? We're all out there, sort of.
They're getting there, though.
Yeah.
I guess teach the parents and get the parents to teach the children. I mean, that's all that can be done.
And
really.
get them off the screens.
Yeah.
Get them off the screens.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. Give them something else to do. because I was over at Hope Sussex last week and we were talking about this. All the youngsters, I'm surprised they're not going to be born with screens in their hands, but you've got to give them something else to do, to be out in nature, to maybe do something more adventurous or do comedy, stand-ups, to just get other interests in them. Go on, yeah.
Well, actually, it's the other way round.
Is it?
My son was an Xbox addict, and he would every spare moment every day he'd be on it, and then one day it broke, and he was he couldn't repair it, and I refused to get him a new one, and what happened, he went through about 2 or 3 weeks of withdrawal symptoms, and then all of a sudden he discovered he had an interest in music, and taught himself how to play keyboards, and within a month he had an album out on iTunes. He discovered who he was as soon as he got away from that box.
So there we go. Take a hammer. Take a hammer.
Yeah, arrange an accident.
Arrange an accident.
But it is creativity.
The bailiffs have come and they've acted. We had to give them something. So we gave them your Xbox. That's the answer there. Sorted.
But the thing that allegedly Dave just said is about creativity. It might be another screen, but I think it is about creativity, because that's what they've tried to wipe out from us. And even in the education system, it's about creating and being in nature and doing stuff like that. I think that thing about parents. If the parents are good examples of things, not forcing anything, but if you're creative as a parent and you're doing something, there's something about the link where you go, my dad just made that, or he made that, I don't know how he did it, it's a piece of crap, but actually I wouldn't mind having a go. Yeah.
But because if they're not subjected to anybody doing something creative or interesting,
that's right.
Then how would they know?
That's right. It's learning. This guy's really going.
I did do a homeschool course for children on common law, and what I found was the children lapped it up. Once they learned that, for instance, answering a question with a question, it became an amazing game for them, and they were out in the garden.
Fantastic.
Sort of playing the game.
Yeah.
A nightmare for the parents, I imagine.
It was actually. It's like,
I think you should go to bed. Well, you might think I should go to bed, but I don't think it's time for bed.
Am I obliged to go to bed?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Why should I go
Where
to bed?
did I agree to that? Can I have the wet signature on this?
Where is my bed?
Oh God!
But I think the People's Lawyer is doing a lot for education.
He is certainly. He's had. Unfortunately, I think
he's had to go. He
David
had to leave.
Edelman's had to go.
Can we ask this last question, which is a bit controversial?
Last question, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay,
yes,
and
go
maybe
for
nobody
it.
wants to answer it.
Okay.
So, but he's put it. So it keeps coming up. Can we trust somebody?
Richard Vobes.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that did come up earlier.
Oh,
actually.
did it? Can we trust?
I've got a question for you,
Yeah,
Richard.
thanks.
Can we trust? And can we trust you, Richard?
No, I don't know. Make your own bloody mind up, for God's sake. Don't listen to me.
Yeah, it's your own. Your own decision. Can we trust? I don't want to say the name, but from the White Rabbit Trust. Can we trust the White Rabbit Trust?
What's the White Rabbit Trust?
Exactly, but it's a picture of a rabbit.
Is that to do with Alice in Wonderland?
I don't know. It could be. Go down that hole. Does anybody know? Because they and there is a name there, but I don't want to say the name because it could cause problems.
Sook's waving.
Hello, Sook.
Okay, how's it going? I mean, I haven't got the chat in front of me, but I'll assume the name is Simon Goldberg.
It is.
Oh, is
So
it?
Simon. It is Simon. Yes.
Look, the trust is firstly, trust is a personal thing. It's a subjective thing. Right, there will be people out there that trust Simon and they're happy to do work for Simon. There'll be people out there who trust me, and there'll be people out there who don't trust me, and there's people out there who don't trust Simon. You have to look at the energy of the individual. You have to look at what they're saying. You have to look at how they conduct themselves. Right? Only you can assess for yourself whether someone is trustworthy for you or not. It's not for anyone else to tell you who's trustworthy or not. That just doesn't make sense.
It's a bit like Simon says, put your hands on your head. Remember that? Simon says game. Yeah.
Simple Simon.
Simon. Yeah, Simple Simon.
Yeah.
But we all did, didn't we? And if you didn't, then you're out.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I get this. People have asked me to my face, "Are you controlled opposition?" And then you just have to say, make your own mind up.
Yes.
As you say, you stand on what you say and do. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. It's fair enough.
Yeah.
And people.
And you've
have got
avoided
to do
answering the question, which is even brilliant.
Which is even better. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we have actually come to the end of the show. It's been a very entertaining and engaging show, and I hope I haven't marred it with some of my humour. What I call humour, you may not call it humour, but I don't care. It's my show. So thank you very much to the panel Very, very kind of you to come in. We've got a couple more of these, but you're a bit dubious about
Well, yeah,
next
next
week.
week. I don't know whether I can come next week, but I'm sure you can go without me. Probably be much better without me. But we do have Peter Wilson and Callie Spell that are coming on. Carly Spell, they're coming on next week, and maybe anybody else that would like to. So yeah, but they're fresh faces, and then we've got more people on the 12th as well.
Opportunity knocks, and I mean that most sincerely, folks.
Yes.
So, yeah, big thank you to Jill, who came and told us her happy story, which was fantastic. To allegedly Dave, to Dean from Buxton. By the way, there's a wonderful video of Dean, Julia, and I going up to Solomon's Temple, is it, or Tower? Or I'm still.
Temple, yes, I watched that. It was very
on the
good.
channel.
Yeah, in the Peak District.
Up there in the Peak District, which we did. To Pete the Hat, to Chris Coverdale, and of course to Sook. Have I missed anybody? David Edelman, who has actually disappeared, the People's Lawyer, who had to go early. And of course to Karen for coming in and facilitating all of the stuff. And Julia, who is in the background just checking and making sure that we have no detractors or no
Naughty
tractors. No, we need tractors, of course. And I'd just like to say thank you so much for everybody supporting the channel, to you with your questions, which is absolutely vital. Really appreciate that.
Roadshows, reminder.
Roadshow. Apparently there's some roadshows coming. I need to go and check those dates to see if I'm free. But
Yes, it would be good if you're there.
in essence, I'm happy to come along and
facilitate.
Yes, I haven't got buttons to press.
No, but you'll just be there.
things.
You can do your suitcase, or you can do your all that sort of stuff.
Anyway, it's been absolutely wonderful. Thanks to everybody for coming on another show. We'll be back not Thursday as it is tonight. I hope you have a fantastic Easter, by the way, if you're having one. But we'll be back next Friday, whatever date that is.
Yeah,
there
the
we
5th,
are. So thank you very much to everybody. Look after yourselves. Take care. Until next time. From all of us, till next time. Looking for the button to turn this thing.
We just keep waving.
Bye-bye.
Time
Thank you.
to go home.